Hi there, I'm Nate, and I'm going to tell you about the time my wife purposely kept feeding me food I'm allergic to, and how I got back at her to teach her a lesson. I have a lot of food allergies, severe food allergies, to most kinds of food. Milk, eggs, fish, crustacean, nuts, literally any type of food allergy you can think of, I have. Of course, some are more severe than others, like if I drink milk I only get a small rash, which is still an allergic reaction, but anyways. My worst, most severe allergy is any type of tree nut. Just to name a few: almonds, cashews, chestnuts, hazelnuts, hickory nuts, Brazil nuts, so on and so forth. I can't even have a tiny piece of a nut, otherwise I'll most likely die without an EpiPen on me at all times. My wife was aware of this. Normally, I'd be the one to cook for myself, because only I knew just what I could and couldn't eat. When I first met my wife, whose name is Anne, I told her specifically what I was allergic to, and what I was deathly allergic to. She understood and asked questions what I could and couldn't eat, and the severity of my reactions if I did consume an allergen. So after a few months of dating, she tried cooking a small meal for me without using any of the foods I'm allergic to. And it wasn't that bad at all. It was actually quite good. So I trusted her with making food. Anne herself was a very genuine person, and I trusted her with cooking my food when she wanted to. I met Anne sometime in high school, junior year. She was in my chemistry class, sat across from me at first. When the teacher paired us together for a project, we became inseparable, attached at the hip basically, and the rest is history. Once she learned all of my allergies, I think she gained a newfound respect for me and all the things I couldn't eat. Ice cream, which is her absolute favorite dessert food, she has to eat alone because ice cream is dairy and dairy is milk, and I'm allergic to that. Not to say I couldn't eat it, since it's only a mild reaction, but it's still very uncomfortable for me, so I tend to avoid it. I'd only drink milk or eat any dairy product in the case of an emergency. So after a while of mutual pining and longing, Anne and I started dating in the middle of college. It really didn't change anything except the label. She and I acted like a couple even before we officially got together. Then, after we graduated college, we moved in together. It wasn't anything fancy, just an apartment that both of us could afford at the same time. But then a small little bump came along in the pretty smooth road. Before I met Anne, she dated this one guy off and on for a few months. He wasn't a bad guy or anything. He was just in a bad place, according to her. I never met him, and I never brought him up. Because why would I? The past is the past. Anyways, a few months after we moved in together, I started to notice she'd sneak away to a private space to talk to someone. Now, I know all of her friends, and I'm fine if she wants privacy, but it was literally every hour of every day. Even when we ate, she constantly checked her phone at the table. I asked who she was texting, and all she said was, "a friend." Well, that friend must not have much of a life if they're constantly talking with her, but seeing as she liked talking to them, I let it be, at least for a little while. What made me finally put my foot down was when she canceled a thought-out, long-awaited planned anniversary date that we both made a few months prior. I asked her why she would ever put this friend over the day of our anniversary, and all she said was, "we can reschedule it," which, yes, technically, she was right, we could reschedule the dinner. What we can't reschedule is the day of our anniversary. 3 years to be exact. I was more upset than angry. I didn't want to trap her or invade her privacy, but it had gotten to a point where I was considering it. It's not like I'm possessive or whatnot. She literally abandoned me on our anniversary. I had a sneaking suspicion that the friend she was seeing was her ex from high school. I didn't want to believe it. She was over him. She was with me. She told me I had nothing to worry about, that everything was great, and she was happy, so I lied to myself. And that opened up a world of trouble for me. There was a little window of time where she put all of her attention on me. She barely talked with any of her friends. I didn't say anything to her about it. She just stopped herself. I thought maybe something had happened and she wasn't speaking to them anymore. I was happy, elated even. All I wanted was her attention, and I was getting it. Finally, one time she made dinner for the both of us again. She wanted to apologize for putting her friend before me, and realized if she wanted the relationship to stay steady and open and respectful, she'd have to set some boundaries. So she made me what she normally cooks, and I ate it without hesitation. A few minutes after, though, I noticed I began to get a rash, which was weird because I'd never gotten one from eating Anne's food. I thought maybe I rubbed my skin against something weird and didn't think about it. It didn't even cross my mind that it could be Anne's cooking. She was trustworthy. I trusted her with my food allergy. I always have. She asked me if I was all right, and I just said I was fine, probably itchy from the pants I was wearing. They were pretty scratchy. It was like that for the next couple of meals, breakfast and dinner. Never lunch, though. Anne cooked all 3 meals, so it was weird for it to not happen all 3 times. I changed my clothes every time. I thought maybe it was the detergent, so I switched that. But I kept getting rashes. Then there was that one time Anne gave me food that had nuts in them, which I am deathly allergic to. It didn't take me long to realize I had anaphylaxis, which, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a serious, potentially life-threatening allergic reaction. It usually means your throat and mouth swells, which, if not treated immediately, can lead to death. Luckily, I had an EpiPen in my pocket and managed to catch it in time before it actually became serious. It was then that I had to face a harsh reality. Anne was purposely feeding me food that I was allergic to. I guess that was her way of getting rid of me, in cold blood. I'm not one to anger easily, but that made me really angry. But I acted dumb. I pretended to trust her. I told her maybe there was a nut already pre-made in an ingredient, even though I knew she makes everything from scratch. I told her it was a freak accident and it could never happen again. But I carried an EpiPen with me since I had almost a whole collection of them. My parents bought one for me every week just in case, but I never used them because I always avoided my food allergens. A few days after that transpired, I could now tell when Anne was being genuine or not. I don't know what happened to her. I don't think I cared to know. But instead, I probably said the craziest thing someone could say in that situation. I want to marry you. Now let it be known I didn't have a ring or even a plan to buy a ring, but she agreed anyways. I know she forced herself to agree. Otherwise, I'd be suspicious. Little did she know I already was. So we were engaged for about a year, and in that year, I could tell she wasn't happy. I ignored it, and she never talked to me or was honest about her feelings. The woman almost killed me. I had a right to be angry. But anyways, I asked her if she wanted a big, extravagant wedding, or if she just wanted to elope, basically. And she agreed. So we threw out the idea of a big, nice wedding and just got married to each other in private. It was quick and quiet and discreet. Just what I needed. A few days after we got married, Anne wanted to consummate the marriage. You know what that means, and if you don't, Google it. I told her I had a different surprise waiting for her in the bedroom. She was all excited about it, and for once, she wasn't faking it. I told her to go in alone and I'd join her soon. What she didn't know, however, was that I contacted her much-wanted ex. You know, the man who she almost killed me for? I told him that I broke up with Anne and she'd be alone in the apartment. He was welcome to do whatever he wanted, and that's what happened. Throughout the night, I waited in the living room while Anne and her ex were busy. But little did the both of them know, I knew a lot more about the ex than they thought. I also know that he was the son of a wealthy businessman and woman who cared only about their image and reputation. In fact, the ex gets most of his money and privilege by riding on the tailcoats of his parents. If he stepped out of line or did anything to jeopardize his parents' image, he'd be disowned. His name was Aiden. His parents were also expecting him to marry some wealthy girl to make an even bigger fortune. That was the plan. The media was expecting it. Big companies and names were expecting it. The parents were expecting it. I wonder what their reactions would be if they knew just what or who their son was dating. Which is why I may or may not have sent a video to them from an anonymous email. And if Aiden gets ostracized, so will Anne. It takes 2 to tango after all. Anne would be sued for defamation, and Aiden would lose everything that makes him who he is. Of course, nothing comes for free. If you want to hear how this story plays out exactly, then hit that like button. If we get enough likes, we'll do a part 2 to this story.